Okay, so, okay, everybody here in the room and who might be online, welcome to the Newburyport Historical Commission meeting for the 25th of July. We're here in the Senior Community Center Boardroom on High Street, and this meeting is also hybrid. There are people on Zoom. I think one of our commissioners may be attending via Zoom. We'll start per usual with the roll call of our commissioners. See Andrew Bernhardt. Here. Here. Scott Clark, our newest commissioner. Here. Yeah, he's here. Alan Marquis is now, did he join online?
Yep, here.
Oh, great, there you are, Alan, thank you, we can hear you. Mark Syndrome. Yeah. Biff Baus. Present. Yeah, right here. Christopher Fay. Here. And Chris Sartell. Here. And myself, Glenn Richards, chairing the meeting. Ed Neumer is absent tonight. So we'll move right along. Should be a fairly brief meeting, if all goes well. The first thing on the there are no DCOD or demo delay hearings, so that's should save some time. First order of business is the Customs House Maritime Museum. They wish to erect a sign. So who's going to speak? Unless you've got a couple of you there. We have James Russell and Bob Cronin. Right?
Hey, commissioners, how you doing?
We're doing well.
But for chairman or president?
I'm the chair.
Mr. Chairman, good to be here. Thanks. James Russell, executive right. 8 months in the gig, having a lot of fun, and we hope to be back in front of you very soon with a raft of new ideas now that we'd like you to look at. This is pretty straightforward. We've been talking about a sign on the back of the museum for donkey's years, and I think the money was in the bank about 2 years ago to try to get this dialed up. And I can tell you what we hope to do here. This is obviously looking from the Merrimack River. To the back, there's no signage there at the moment. Now, one would imagine that most people might know that that's the Custom House. But then again, you never know. So this is identical to the sign that's in the front of the museum, which says Maritime Museum. Scale down, we put it in PVC because the wood is going to rot if we put it back there. It's going to get blasted by the weather, obviously, because that's north facing. We could either cut into the PVC or have it flat. We're kind of leaning towards having it routed in. I think it might be a slightly nicer look. And of course, CPC funded the nice doors back there, so that's the flood protection. There's a gate that can go in front of those doors too. But with the waterfront park, actually, that's probably the best thing that's happened in terms of keeping the water out, which has been great. And eventually, what we want to talk about is probably having an outdoor patio area there and having an indoor-outdoor discovery center for kids year round. In the summertime, and like an interior space in winter. But we'll talk about that at another meeting. This is just to get your sign off. We got the zoning, I understand, I think that got passed. So I think we have to come in front of you and use the ring and.
Yeah, I probably should explain, sorry, James, that because the Maritime Museum does have a preservation restriction, this one was kind of on the borderline as to whether it's minor and needs review or not, but to be on the safe side, it came in for review. So basically, we need to decide if there's any adverse impact of doing this, any damage to the structure or destruction of historical fabric or materials and all that. So that's why James and Bob are here. So we do need to take a vote as to whether or not we can improve this. So it's basically pretty straightforward, putting up this sign. Can you speak a little bit to how you plan to do it to minimize damage to the granite and all that?
Yes, well, we don't want to go into the granite, so we'll try to get we have to mechanically fasten it somehow, and hopefully we'll be able to hit it just right. That's sitting. See where the granite is cut and faced a little bit as opposed to the rock, as opposed to the flame finished surface. So that there's a little lip. It sticks out about an inch or thereabouts, but that should be enough just to take the weight of it. Now we're only talking about an inch or give or take a PVC anyway, but it is about 7.5 feet long. You can see in the front, of the museum, that's let's say 10 feet, there are these 4 stainless steel bolts and one in the middle. And so I think what we'd like to try to do is if we can hit that border mark here, possibly here. And then we were talking about silicones, and I think they make these silicones. And actually, the silicone will be good because if we put the silicone on the top, it's gonna stop the water running down and sitting and beating up down there. So obviously the silicone isn't gonna impact the granite. You can easily peel that off, and if it doesn't work, we just take it off. And but I mean, I think that the font looks pretty good, and that's a pretty traditional.
It looks pretty familiar. Is that basically the same size on the front?
That is from this phone.
Okay.
Pasted onto a PowerPoint.
Okay.
And Bob is the graphic designer.
So is there any questions regarding this, for representatives from, yeah?
2 questions. It seems as though, it seems as though the sign is fairly small, so I don't know that people will see it from quite far away. So I kind of question the use of that sign. I understand that you want to identify it, but if you're, 100 yards away, you won't be able to decipher it, especially if you have my eyesight.
Yeah,
I wonder about that.
that's why it's geared towards a kid's center. I'm kidding.
Well, the other 2 things is, one, we have, the city's put up an information board right at the end of the lawn. And there is an awful lot of traffic that goes up, the Custom House Way, just to the right of, on this photo on the right of, the building, so. And I'm walking by there every day, and even when I have these on, I can pretty well see it.
The other question is PVC. I understand why you want to use PVC, but wood is what was used for some 100 and some years. Wood is replaceable, wood is recyclable, PVC stays forever.
It doesn't trouble us. It isn't. It's immaterial. I mean, changing it out in 5-10 years because it rots is not a big deal, right? It's not a large expense. It's a couple of $100 to get this thing done. So I'd say maybe a preference. I mean, some people may be allergic to PVC just because of what it is, right? It's kind of a nasty sort of a material. We're talking about a $600 sign. If it rots in a couple of years, we just peel it off and put another one on.
I personally would propose that
There's no point of preference really from us. It's whatever you guys think would be best.
I would agree with that.
Great.
Is the sign that's mimicking the front made of wood, or was?
It's a pretty good question. It's gotta be wood because it's been up there quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little difficult to mimic that exactly. It's got that black pebble. It's,
Yeah.
you know, the black pebble.
Yeah.
Not quite sure what that's called. I'd rather not put on the gold leaf if we can do that. That's A, the cost, but B, that north face does get hit pretty hard in winter time. We're seeing, this is just mortar projects that we're gonna be starting with the CPC fund soon, because the mortar just is pouring through this mortar at the moment. So,
Any other questions? So, I had kind of drafted, a draft motion, to approve or commit the mounting of the signs proposed. Do you want to modify that to, to specify that it be some sort of wood material rather than some sort of artificial plastic material?
Or at
We've
least,
seen lots of
or at
nods.
least closer to the front sides makeup and look.
This too.
great.
Just to be more consistent, I think.
And there are some species of wood that are fairly rot resistant to that terribly expensive these days, so. All right, so, see how this sounds that the commission will approve or permit, the mounting of the sign is proposed to be fabricated of wood. A sign, comma, to be fabricated of wood as proposed, but it has, as proposed, then you're referring to the location and that sort of thing, and in a way, nothing. So, does that sound like a reasonable motion? All right, is it,
I'll make that motion if you'd like.
okay, thanks, Bill. Is there a second?
I'll second Marcelo.
Okay. Okay, so let's go around our board here, Andrew,
Yes.
okay. Biff,
Yes.
okay, Mark,
Yes.
okay, Scott, Mark,
Yes.
okay. Chris Fay,
Yes.
okay. Alan Markey, that's you?
Yes, yes,
Okay, we got it, thank you. Chris Sartell,
Yes.
okay, and, I guess I make it, excuse me, I make it unanimous, so. So so you have our blessing to do that, basically, you know. I think the modification that Syndrome proposes, makes sense, hadn't thought of that myself, but I think that's a good idea, and, we look forward to, hearing about your future projects. As someone who's been with the museum for a relatively short period of time, I've been seeing a lot of changes going in. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to, I know you got a lot of stuff. I'd love to get on the agenda, as soon as you can, actually, would be terrific. Just to run through a raft of ideas that we got. I just want to make sure that we're tacking in the right direction on this and any course corrections.
Okay, so would this be along the lines of, kind of, like today we had, this presentation, we took, we voted on a motion to approve it or disapprove it. It sounds like what you're saying is kind of share with us a proposed project, might not even be yet at the stages, but to come in before then, just to see, to make sure you're not going too far afield or something.
You got it, yeah, this is pure concept, and if you've got, now is a great time to get that feedback.
Okay,
Then we incorporate that into our requests.
Okay. I'll just communicate with my trustee colleague here.
The next meeting is August 8th, if that works for you. Okay.
Yeah,
That's not so soon, okay. All right,
lucky
great.
you meet every 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, well, it's been almost a month now. Had a couple of cancellations.
And by the way, Bob is new chair of the board. Jack had to step down for family illness reasons, so there was a board meeting today, so the new chair.
Congratulations, Bob. Thank you. Yes, I know Bob, he was my former ward counselor
Back in the day.
back in the day. I've been around. Okay, well, thanks very much.
Great, thank you so much.
Thanks.
You can
Okay,
sit around and
great
go.
meeting you all, and thanks, Caitlin.
Yeah.
Kevin. Okay, glad to see you.
Okay, thank you.
And thanks for putting us at the top of the agenda.
Take care, guys.
Okay, good night.
Cheers.
The only other item, well, actually not the only item, there's some approval of minutes and so forth. We have the letter that we spoke briefly about, some weeks back. That, from our former colleague, Joe Morgan, and, so we're gonna kind of discuss that. I'm not sure if we're ready, to be honest. I'm not sure if we're ready to take any specific action. So this was a letter from Mr. Morgan, suggesting that the entry on the, for the National Register of Historic Places for the Bartlett Mall, that, it has, there's Joe's letter. It has a lot of information about the courthouse, the architect and this and that. Very little mention of the surrounding park and no mention at all, I don't think, right, that of Charles Elliott's involvement on the actual listing.
Right, that's correct. I believe it's a complete omission,
Yeah.
the history of Charles Elliott's involvement. And any of the landscape features that he might have been,
Right.
that he may have proposed or was instrumental in.
So, okay, so it seemed relatively straightforward, and I believe in the meantime that there was a letter from the Olmsted Network. Apparently, Mr. Elliott was heavily involved with, the Frederick Law Homestead organization and Homestead himself, and, in fact, he kind of died rather almost prematurely there, but he was gonna go on to, who knows what things he would have gone on to, but, there's a letter from them about, Elliott and so forth. Now, I don't know if there's anyone here who would like to make a public comment, is there?
Three of us.
Three of us? Okay. All right, so I know that there's been kind of public discussion, so, I thought tonight would be an okay night to handle that, public comment. So we'll have a public comment period, just, per usual, when you're recognized, state your name and address, and make your comment, as needed, so, who would like to go first?
All right. My name is Andrea Underwood. I live at 83 High Street here in Newburyport. I'm president of the Parks Alliance. We're a nonprofit that formed in January of 2023. And we're closely aligned with the Parks Commission. We go by their priorities. And I was also a member and chair of the Bartlett Mall Commission before it was folded into the Parks Commission. So I've spent a lot of time at the Mall. I did speak at your last meeting when this item came up, and I noted concern because we have a restoration project for the Bartlett Mall. And I was concerned because Mr. Morgan has been a very outspoken critic of this project, the restoration project. However, I have reviewed the listings myself. By the way, Charles Elliott is listed at the state level, but not at the federal. And I feel that Mr. Morgan is right and that we should absolutely add to the listing. I'm a huge fan of Charles Elliott's. And I don't believe, because your commission and the Massachusetts Historical Commission have issued a permit for the restoration project of the Bartlett Mall that will last 3 years. And hopefully, if we don't get it done in 3 years, you'll be able to do an extension. I don't think that amending the listing should impact the project, the restoration project. And I think that restoration project, I know that, I don't want to speak for Joe, but I know that he's spoken that he doesn't like the formal curb that's proposed around the pond or the pump house that's above ground. And just for my own education, I reviewed the Department of Interior's rehabilitation policies, and those types of improvements are absolutely allowed because it doesn't irretrievably change the history of the mall. We're not filling the pond or demolishing the courthouse. So I felt more comfortable knowing that our project that's already approved is not doing any harm. It's absolutely approvable. So the last thing I would like to say is that while I think it's great to add to the listing, public education is very important. And so when I was on the Bartlett Mall, we did 2 festivals called Bartlett Mall Day, and we created historical signage for the Bartlett Mall to educate people about various aspects of the mall. And one sign is on Charles Elliott. Sadly, those signs were lost, but the Port Parks Alliance just had them reprinted. And we will be out at the Bartlett Mall this coming weekend with that information and information on the restoration project. If you want to come visit me, please do. I'll be out there a long time.
You should have some foot traffic
Yeah.
this weekend.
I hope so. But my point is that if we're all really concerned about the mall, the public education is key. And the Port Parks Alliance does have a website, and we have history on each park. Some have more history than others, like Atkinson Common and the Bartlett Mall have a ton of history. But if you would ever like to collaborate, Joe, if you would like to collaborate with us, we would love to do that. And I think that's another component that's very important in addition to the listing. All right, thank you so much.
Thank
Oh,
you.
one last thing, sorry. Mr. Morgan, I received the copy I was CC'd on the Olmsted Network letter, but I didn't get your original letter. Would you please send that to me? You can get it through, if you go to the Port Parks Alliance website, you can just send it through that email. Would that be, can you do that for me? I never.
Like this one?
No, I don't know. Is this, it seemed as if maybe you had written a separate letter to the Olmsted Network.
No.
Oh, you sent this letter to them.
This is-
Okay.
I wrote a letter to Sheriff Richards, and then in my discussions with Ann Neal Petri of the Olmsted Network, I directed her on the scope of the project and the various particulars, and then she submitted the letter.
Okay, thank you. I thought,
Had the opportunity to review.
I thought perhaps you had sent a separate letter, so but I misunderstood. Thank you.
Sure.
And just to be clear, the scope of, and I assume, Joe, when you said, we talked to this person about the project in that case being amending the list, not the whole restoration project.
No.
Yeah. Right, see, because those are two very different things. We're here only talking about updating the listing. I view that as totally separate from, all the work that you guys are
Right.
doing and all of that.
And so when you spoke to the Olmsted Network, was it just about the listing?
Actually, I didn't speak to them about the listing. It was Ann Neal Petri who originally indicated to me after I reached out for any possibility of their advocacy that it might be possible to amend the original nomination form. So I don't know which came first. It might have been my exploration of MHC's original comment back in December, their review of the project. But at some point I discovered the omission in the original.
At the federal level, yes.
Sort of stuff.
And just for the record, that was Joe Morgan's voice you were just hearing it. I believe we had another public comment from someone.
So this is nice. Do I get to sit down too?
If you wish, you may.
Stephanie Nikotich, 93 High Street. I agree, it would be great to have a complete national register listing for the Bartlett Mall. My experience is that trying to just add a couple of paragraphs to a current listing would not work. In any case, it's not what is needed. The Bartlett Mall is currently listed and recorded only in a Form B, which is for buildings, for the courthouse, which is why so much information about the mall itself is missing, the part. And also in a very truncated Form A, which is area, it's the generally for just an area. But I could not find any listing based on a Form H, which is specifically for parks and landscapes. So this is what the Bartlett Mall deserves. That would be a worthy thing for the NHC to take up. This and anything being suggested will require new submissions to the MHC to start, and that requires the help of professionals. In 2020, while Mr. Morgan was a member of the commission, the NHC had available $30,000 in grants from the CPC and the MHC for an historic survey update. Those grants were to allow the city to hire professionals to help with needed updates to our National Register district listings. These could be both to update incomplete listings, such as we have for the Bartlett Mall, and to submit missing forms for key contributing properties, which, by the way, is the case with the Brown School. And that's going to be a requirement of a city ordinance that be done. So it could be done, I would hope, with grant funds. In 2020, Mr. Morgan had no suggestions for updating the Bartlett Mall listing. or as I recall, anything in the National Register District. Only one commission member that I remember, who is no longer with you, spent time to recommend properties for this update, and then nothing happened. So a question for you, Chair Richards, is any of that grant money still available, or has it all expired? Thank you.
The grant money is still available.
It's still
It
available.
still has, yep, 15,000.
I was gonna check with Caitlin, but my understanding was that.
The
might very well-
CPC money is still available. The MHC money, did that go away?
I believe so,
Okay, so $15,000.
From the CPC.
yes.
And the Form H,
It's a Form H.
and what is that? What?
It's
how-
specifically for parks and landscapes,
I'll make a note of that.
right? And then, you know, the way you start, but someone who does this will take you all through it, is you start by submitting forms to the MHC.
Mhm.
And then
Right.
after they approve the forms, they go to the federal. level. But it will probably require a lot of, as much information as we can gather to update the MAL, not just a couple of paragraphs about Mr. Elliott, although that is very, you know, obviously that's very valued. It will probably also require new photography. So it's not a simple sort of, let's throw a couple of
Right.
paragraphs into the old nomination form and it's all gonna be changed. It just doesn't work like that. It's a project.
Well, thanks for
Okay.
the, not so great news.
Thank you.
But, thank you for the information. Was there another person?
Yeah.
Speak.
So just to be clear. We're talking about both. Joe's proposed changes to the registry and the letter to the old homestead. No,
The letter from the home.
from the Olmsted Network, yeah. Okay, all
Yeah.
right. Ted Beretti, 67 Marlboro, I chair the Parks Commission. To be honest, when it comes to the amending the registry, I agree that there could or should be a mention of Charles Elliott. I mean, he's an important and significant, obviously, part of the history of the map, because, okay,
Anyone who might not be able to-
important and significant part of the map was his design. The only real comment I have, about the changing the registry is directly related to the letter from the Olmsted Network. So I want to say the amendment to the registry specifically talks about the beach. In the letter from the Olmsted Network, it also mentions specifically the wide beach. Now I know that some of the opponents to the restoration project are specifically concerned about the pond edge. And the proposal is to put a kind of a granite, edge around it. My worry is that in changing the registry and highlighting the beach, it's specifically trying to kind of stop that design feature head on. So if you consider updating the registry, I would want you to consider that the reasons for the language in the update may not necessarily just be to highlight Charles Elliott and what a wonderful landscape designer he is. Secondly, and that's really my only comment on whether or not you should think the language should be used to update the registry. I was surprised to receive, to be CC'd on the letter from Anya Petrie. I didn't know that a letter was sent to her. Not that I should have, as the chair of the Parks Commission, but I was surprised. The first thing I noticed is that It's from the Olmsted Network. It's not Bartlett Mall isn't an Olmsted park. Now, I know that Charles Elliott was an apprentice of Olmsted. I know that later in his career, he was part of Olmsted and Elliott. He worked in the landscape design firm. However, when he designed Bartlett Mall, he was on his own as an independent. So it just surprises me that Ann Neal Petrie, president of the Olmsted Network, would even choose to get involved. The next thing I noticed is the very last paragraph, when Ann Neal Petrie writes, going forward, we urge the city to limit any changes to those that ensure the park's natural and historic integrity. Elliott strove to preserve the site's natural beauty and ecological integrity. Like, those words have been ringing in my head ever since I read this. Part of the reason why we set out to do this restoration project to begin with is because the frog pond at the Bartlett Mall is toxic. It's laden with toxic sediment, inches and inches and inches and inches of it. The city has been trying to remedy the problem of the pond since before Charles Elliott submitted his design plans. I want to say they installed the first fountain to try to clean the water in 1880. Didn't work. Elliott came along in 1887 with his design. Even after that, they created a new fountain in 1891, another fountain in 1986. So this is a problem that's gone on for more than a century. So with regards to, I mean, with all due respect to Ann Neal Petrie, president of the Olmsted Network, when she writes, we are concerned that the elements will adversely impact the park's historic design. I guess personally, when it comes to weighing whether or not we want a wonderful historically designed park that's kind of like a toxic cesspool with a broken fountain that's an eyesore in the city versus, you know, going through the process of trying to fix this park, which may require a pump house, which may require a granite edge in order to restore the site's natural beauty and ecological integrity. I seem to fall on the side, and honestly, I think Elliott might too, that rather than leave it the way it is, let's actually do something to kind of revitalize and restore the pond, and make it once again the center of kind of city life that it was all those years ago. So again, I just wanted to speak specifically to some items in the letter. I've corresponded with Ann Neal Petrie. I haven't heard back from her yet. All those things that I said, my worry is that I didn't correspond with her. I don't know if she was given the rationale for why the project was kind of put forth in the first place. I don't know if she knows the state of the pond now, and now she seems to, I mean, she talks about how there is a clear sight line without any man-made structures. So it tells me that she doesn't know about the fountain that's been there for over 100 years. So again, I think Ann Neal Petrie maybe needs to learn a little bit more about the pond as well as the project. Thank you. Thanks.
And your last name was Boretti, did I get that right?
Boretti.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just comment that I personally view the project and its fate is kind of separate from this. It is just a brief comment that it's a little bit like when we have preservation restrictions, like with the Maritime Museum. So they have, now the frog pond and the mall don't have a preservation restriction as such. But the analogy is that, you know, you're preserving something, you want to avoid adverse impacts, historical fabric and et cetera values. But things change, right? And requirements change, public use changes and so forth. So I don't think it's fair to Ms. Morgan to suggest that he's trying to torpedo, the whole project or something by simply amending the, things. That's kind of the impression I get there.
So thank you, Chair Richards. May I speak?
Yes, yes, you may. So I recognize, Joe Morgan.
So thank you, I mean, for discussing it. I mean, obviously, as a topic of discussion, this is exactly, I think, what we're all interested in. We want to highlight the historical significance of major major cultural asset here in Newburyport. And just as we review, just as you review, I participated in that, many properties, built properties. I see the park, the historic park as it's very similar. In other words, there are certain stylistic and historical principles that need to be observed for preservation, because I feel that this is a preservation issue. And the comments regarding the project that has been proposed and which is currently shelved because of budgetary problems is not as and for which I have been an opponent. I have highly criticized the project because I feel that it's a bad project for what it's intended to do. I feel that really that's not an issue here. Whether this project goes ahead with the approval, the project that's actually been proposed, the Rock Pond restoration, whether it goes ahead with the approval of all the agencies and all the commissions, and Newburyport supports that and advocates for it, then fine, that's what the people want. But what I would like to do in a true preservationist effort is to repair an obvious omission to the historical record, so that in 25 years, 30 years, the residents of this city will have access to a full and complete record, so that further renovations, further restorations, further rehabilitations can take place to that asset, which is Bartlett Mount Park. If we don't act, then they will be, just as we are today, working in somewhat darkness regarding what the intention was. As the years move on, we will lose that perspective. We will forget what it is. Not that we'll forget who Olmsted is, or maybe not even who Charles Elliott is, but we'll forget that original landscape. And that landscape, I think, is we have used that really silly slogan, the crown jewel, for so long, but I believe it really is a significant and valuable asset for the city of Newburyport. And I think, do harmful, destructive alterations to it, I think is really what I'm worried about, is because once they're made, it is difficult to correct them. But we should, as in a preservation restriction, we should document it so that a future generation can fix it. And if indeed the city wants to approve alterations that compromise the integrity of that asset. So, and that's really all I have to say tonight. I've already made my comments regarding the project. You all know very well why, and the detailed reasons for why I have opposed it. Okay, but that's not why I'm here tonight. I'm here so that the city can protect itself against future intrusions on that land.
Yeah. In the interest of, as Mr. Morgan was saying, filling out that historical record, apparently, I've been in contact, and you guys probably have as well, Chuck Goodman. He couldn't be here tonight. But I told them I was interested in, and the group is interested in hearing. Apparently he's compiled a lot of historical background, so,
The original plans.
Yeah.
Some of the original plans.
Yeah.
Are at the museum.
Yeah.
So, we have a lot.
yes, I think I have. I saw a copy of that in the Newburyport Public Library on the Temple book and. One more note that in Elliot's reading sketch, in two places, the boundary of the pond is labeled beach. But anyway, I digress. Huh? All right, but no comment. But again, we're getting off, you know, like I say, future projects, that's one thing, we're not really here to discuss that tonight. And I do appreciate, Stephanie, your comments about, some of the details on how and what we might need to do to create a better, record of that, which I think, which is really what we're trying to do here. So I don't think any quick questions? Any other questions?
Because I was a member of the board when we approved the start of the process, we did have concerns. Was not so much having a pump, but having a pump house.
Mhm.
And we thought that detracted from the park itself. And at the time we looked at it, we were told you didn't want to have an underground closure because of safety reasons. Which I ran a business and you have lots of manholes around town. And it's not that we held up the restoration. I mean, that's when you say opponent of restoration, that's surely not what I felt. I can't speak for the others here. But we thought that some of the improvements that you might consider improvements detracted from the historical significance of the project. And we broke that down, if I remember correctly, and quite frankly, I was shocked. There was like a month or so later, and there was some big meeting, and it said the Historical Society, our group approved, and I looked at the paper, I said, no, we never did. And I was kind of shocked that a lot of the recommendations that I thought we discussed, and the ground was part of it, if I'm not mistaken. Ground, we did talk about the ground, that was already discussed. And I was surprised that we were just kind of like overlooked all of a sudden. Oh, the decision's been made, let's put it out to bid. So I think there's a lot of confusion between the Parks Commission and certainly us. Because I don't think anyone here, I mean, boy, do we want a nice park and a pond that's not toxic. But there were suggestions that we thought we could have both.
Yeah.
So it was done.
Just a minute, I think I can clarify somewhat, Andrew. We had a hearing as part of a downtown overlay district special permit application. Because that area is in downtown overlay district,
Right,
and they were, building that pump house and all that, it was considered, a new, basically required review. From the historical commission. And there was a special permit from the planning board.
right,
So what we did was we had meetings about it, and if you probably remember, there were a couple of iterations.
yeah,
And they moved the pump house back
right,
and made some other changes. So, and then we sent our historical report to the planning board. And so, then you'd probably know better than me, Andrea. So the planning board, issued a special permit, or did that not go anywhere because of those funding issues? Does anyone?
We
They did
did
that.
all the
Okay.
approvals.
Okay.
All approvals are.
So the actual, we never it wasn't ours to approve this.
oh, then,
No,
just.
all our powers was, or if you can call it that, was simply to issue a historical report. Where we lay out, historical significance and what our concerns were and all that, and then it's up to them to either grant or deny it.
Okay.
That sounds fair. Fair.
I believe so.
Sounds accurate. Sounds accurate.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Because our role is advisory, right?
Not in that
And
case.
so I think, it was last summer this also. I was away for summer, so when I came back. Like I missed the drama. I got the residual drama, I won't go into detail, but it seems like it got a little political.
Yeah,
And I don't think anybody on this, maybe I'm just naive, but I don't think anyone signed up here to be political, and then. It was, we just voluntarily, we're not getting paid to do this, and, we're just like history nerds, I guess, or architecture nerds, but then it became, my understanding was it became political, and then people were, I don't know, it seems like people were pulling strings and pressuring people and stuff like that, but I don't, about my understanding, because I was away, about pump house. I'm gonna call it like the pump house drama.
But that's not what we're talking about.
No, let me get my point. My point is that if we're advisory and we made our recommendations and it went to the planning board and all the permits were issued, then why the drama? Like, why are we, Joe wrote a letter. Wasn't here for the last meeting either. He's expressed his opinion. He's not backed away from that, and it seems like we're spinning around, and there's somebody on the Olmsted network that's not here, that's being questioned about their integrity, or maybe this is a ruse on the part of Joe that, you know, anybody can do that. Like, I feel like there's some sort of granite network that people are profiting off of the massive use of granite. And think like, we could all cast aspersions on each other. I guess like, we've been going on for this for about 30 minutes now, and I'm not sure why. Yes. So that one.
Yeah, I think Joe is trying to put a context into what the memo is all about.
Okay.
And the information that we were provided is incomplete. Now, if I remember correctly, Chuck Griffin provided a lot of information about the mall and the history and so on and so forth. And I think if the information about the mall is not complete, and if I understand Joe's intent, we need to make sure that the information that is provided about the map is all there. And I think that's all there is to it. The rest is not of our purview.
Right.
And I would totally support Joe's attempt to make sure that whatever the mall represents historically is consigned properly on paper and is then put to review and accepted by the Mass Historical Commission. That seems to me
Pretty straightforward.
I think that's very important, if I may interject, that this has to go through the Massachusetts Historical Commission. I don't think in any way it's as complicated as Stephanie makes it out to be. My understanding from Ben Haley, talking with him, it's actually pretty straightforward. As long as you do not change the existing nomination forms, and we're only augmenting it with specific data about the landscape, okay, the park landscape, because that's what the nomination form is about. It's about the park landscape and Superior Courthouse. We can ask our question, we can ask them philosophically why they did that back in 1976 or 75, when it was originally supported. We don't know. There was confusion, obviously, and they, for some reason, they did not fill in all the blanks on the landscape portion of the form, and it was. The form is there to accommodate landscape design, but it was never indicated on the form. The actual content of the forms were strictly for.
I just wanna, the only reason I'm here is because I got a letter. And in bold, it says, based on our understanding of the proposed plans, we are concerned that elements will adversely impact all of the parks and services. That's the only reason I'm here.
Yeah.
Right, that's it.
Okay.
Right, if it was just the amendment to the sort of register, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
But this is specifically someone from the Olmsted Network saying, whatever your plans are, we're worried about them.
Mm.
And so I felt like it was my responsibility as kind of a shepherd of this project to come and speak to that. That's nothing.
Okay, which is kind of their default position, if you will, on anything, since, you know, the default position is preservation. If you will, so, I thought that, my understanding is that Chuck Griffin was either in the process or completed the process of gathering information, but unless I missed something, he didn't send it in to us yet. And he would have done so tonight.
Received anything.
Okay.
But this was earlier.
Yeah, okay, and I know that he's got a lot of background on that, because, for a number of reasons.
My only reason to bring it up is that might help in terms of adding the information that needs to be added regarding
Okay.
the landscape.
Sorry to interrupt you, you have $15,000. Wouldn't it be great to use that money when we have such a wealth of knowledge on the Heartland now? Then just moving quickly, so why don't we do it right?
Ask MHC. Find out what they need.
Park and landscape can have its own listing, that's why there's a Form H. It doesn't need to be part of a Form B. If it is.
Okay, well, I don't think we need to take any particular vote or motion tonight. I think that my sense of the group here, if I'm wrong, is that where people are in support of the idea of making this minor update to this form. I kind of see two maybe parallel tracks, one being the kind of quick and easy thing you seem to be exploring, Joe, of just thinking of just a very minor augmentation to the Form B, just to mention Charles Elliott and, took a couple sentences. But then, do you know anything about this Form H at all?
No, none of that. To me, I'd like Ben Haley, who is in charge of he's in charge of the nomination forms for the National Register. He's designated person at Massachusetts Historical Commission. I'm happy to follow up with him unless someone feels that, I have a bias here, but I think that he can give us a lot of information on what we're trying to do. And he's indicated to me that it's actually not that complicated.
Right.
We just need to augment the existing nomination form and complete it for any omission of information.
I would only suggest that we make some kind of motion or recommendation to initiate the process so it doesn't stay static.
Okay, what would that sound like, since you, it's a kind of offer?
And get things going.
Yeah, so basically just saying that the commission, motion, that the commission supports the efforts to make the update to the listing. All right, let's make a little note here.
Would it be helpful to put someone in charge of it at the historical, at your level, that can also spend the funds?
Take a step back. We can work that out. Okay, so I'm just making this very simple. The commission supports the updating of the register listing for the outlet. If one thinks that's a good idea, we can take a motion as to whether we, the commission supports the updating of the register listing of the Barton Wall Frog Pond, and we'll kind of keep that, I just say, keep it alive. Hopefully not too far.
Well, do we need to word this as, that we approve the process of starting the process through the MHC as opposed to the national, or do we? There's two separate things. I mean, I feel like most of this stuff is really not necessarily our purview either, not necessarily to go out and add stuff to National Registry. If somebody wants to do that.
Yeah, we can. So
Yeah, what's on the National Registry is a result of what the Newburyport Historical Commission did many years ago. It's absolutely your purview, and it's your purview and the city's purview. I don't think by supporting this, I hope you're not saying that any private citizen can just go to MHC and start updating things, because that's not the way it works.
That's correct. Yeah. But MHC is the middle man, if you will, to the MTS. But it has to be the local historical commission that submits to the MHC.
Right. right, well, so what I've got drafted here is commission supports the updating of the registered listing of the Robert Mall / Farm working through the Mass Historical Commission. So it's an unbelievable motion. All right, this, it's only make that.
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
I will second the motion.
okay. Okay, so let's see how we feel about that. Okay, Andrew, your vote on that,
Yes.
okay? Mr. Biff Baus,
Yes.
okay, Mr. Sandron,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes, Mr. Clark.
yeah, well, I leave it turned loosely sometimes. Mr. Fay,
Yes.
Alan Markey, you still there?
Yes, right here, yes.
Okay. Mr. Sortel.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and I'll also assent myself. All right, so we'll to be continued, and I will, I've been in touch. In fact, I'll save it for. I had an update that also involves Chuck Griffin, but we'll get to that after the approval of the minutes. So we need to approve the minutes of June 13. Did you have a chance, I hope, to review those and is there a motion to approve those?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
I will second.
Okay, so Andrew, your vote on that?
Yes.
Okay. Biff?
Yes.
Okay, Marks and John?
Yes.
Hey, Scott?
I was not-
Oh, you weren't here.
I thought-
Okay, we'll put you down as abstaining. Chris Fay?
I'm gonna stay.
Oh, that's right, you weren't here, sorry. Alan, were you here?
I don't think so.
Okay, yeah, I think it was a late in the meeting. We're so tell, I think you were there.
abstained.
Oh, you weren't there either. Jeez. Hopefully we'll have enough. All right, I'll see if we have enough.
You were on the phone.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, that was when I was on the phone. Okay, we had 4 affirmative votes, so those minutes are approved. Okay. So the only update I have is, I was gonna meet with him today, but I really wasn't feeling that well at all. For this meeting this morning, as you may know, there was a preservation restriction for the old jail properties that has been in the works since roughly 2019. It's, yeah. Well, Chris is the only one who's been on board long enough to remember this. Anyway, I'm hoping that it's finally moving to conclusion. The last one they had, some of you probably will remember, we reviewed it. It was just like way too complicated, and I think one of the comments was, sounds more about a non-preservation declaration than a preservation, because it had went through elaborate detail of things that were not protected and so on. Anyway, so we basically said, look, you need to follow the format, the one that Mass Historical expects and will approve. It's already gonna be somewhat complex because there are 4 properties involved and so forth. But it doesn't have to be all that complicated because there's only certain historical things that you're actually preserving, the granite walls, the structure, jail, window openings, stuff, basic stuff like that is gonna, that can't be altered. So I'm anxious to see how. Right, so I'm anxious to, I will meet with, one of Mr. Griffin's attorneys tomorrow morning on the phone. And we'll see what they've got, but hopefully, fingers crossed, we can maybe bring that over the finish line before the end of the year. That's really like that. And that's all I have. Anything you wanna say?
Just a quick comment on, we were talking about, our purview and, researching these things and putting these funds against it. I recall asking several times when we needed to have that money, would it be possible for the city to, approve, like, can we get this money to do more Form Bs for some of the homes that are, we talked about the homes that are just hitting the 75-year mark, there's a whole batch of them. And basically, we're told at the time that we don't have the manpower, anybody that we have to hire to do it, we wouldn't have anybody to supervise them essentially, so that there was nothing. That's what I meant, is that we don't have the power to say, okay, yeah, let's hire these people and research this. So it's part of that.
Mr. Port, are you listening to any of this?
I am, yes, thank you.
Um,
Sorry, I got stuck at City Hall from the meeting, so I wasn't able to swing over. I missed the beginning of your meeting.
yeah, it's okay. What we're talking about now is, we had some CPC funds to do some updating of, either creating new Form Bs for properties that have aged into that period, or
Right.
just missed back in the 80s, and so on and so forth. There was some discussion tonight about possible use of that to update this listing for the wall thing, but in any event, the question right now is, apparently the CPC funds are still available. I have a feeling that, between you and I, the ball just kind of rolled off the back burner behind the stove somewhere, as far as, getting, last I recall, there was you were gonna do some sort of request for proposals or something for people.
That's right, yeah. Quite frankly, I have this conversation with folks a lot these days, but most everything, unfortunately, that we do is quite involved and has a lot of process with it. So unfortunately, as you mentioned, this relatively small allocation of funds, and obviously, regardless of which structures or properties involved, is important to Newburyport. We have unfortunately continually had to put that on the back burner. There are folks who are certainly passionate about this and may want to spend time on it and have been advocating for the use of these funds or to do this work. If anybody wants to volunteer for that, that might be helpful. But unfortunately, our bandwidth is somewhat limited. So quite frankly, while there's been requests to do some of these things over the years, we haven't necessarily seen anybody stepping up to assist with some of that. And unfortunately, with everything else that we have on our plates, I certainly, unfortunately, do not have the bandwidth to take that on right now. I don't believe that Caitlin, our staff planner, does either. She could certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but the staff in the office, unfortunately, have a lot on their plates at the moment. So unfortunately, if someone wants to spearhead that a little bit, that may make it move a little faster. But quite frankly, I just to be fair to the office and the staff, we have a lot to do right now, and unfortunately have just unfortunately had to put some things on the back burner. This isn't the only one. Unfortunately, there's a lot around the city, and given land use regulations, development, making sure things come out in a bunch of different places in a very regulatory and bureaucratic process means that it's fewer things that we can get done, unfortunately. And this is unfortunately one of the ones that's had to wait.
Thought occurs to me, in the past, we've sometimes made little, like sort of a subcommittee of, maybe 2 or 3 people who are interested in a particular thing to, to get together to work on something. I'm forgetting at the moment what the last thing we did with that was, but maybe some of you remember, but anyway, so we could do something like that. If there are people who feel they have enough time, those of us who are newly retired, as he looks over, or whatever.
I would be happy to lend my assistance to anyone.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a necessary member of the commission, but as far as, so do you want to? All right, well, tell you what, when I take the names of the possible volunteers, we'll see if we can't move that ball down the, I don't know the football now, so that way, so we get Andrew's interested. And
I'm recently retired also.
but don't you have 4-wheel distractions?
See you there.
Okay, Mark.
What will shoot me?
Watch me out of the house. Why don't you volunteer?
Anyone interested, Andrew and Mark?
I would think about it.
All right.
I'm a big, I absolutely for paperwork and probably not. Yeah, I mean, really, it's like my classroom is what I want to do, so it seems to be okay.
I'll put you down as maybe.
I can just run it the way I need to run.
Okay.
Yeah. Sounds a little more complicated.
All right, thanks for visiting that, but, I will see if we can make some progress on that. I feel badly about that actually, because I've known about that and wish we could do some of that, because I know there are properties that need those Form Bs and so on and so forth. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
He will. Mark St. John moves to adjourn. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay.
All in favor, yes.
Yes. I'm just sitting next to you.
Okay. Well, then put it this way, is there anyone opposed? All around the board, there's no opposition to adjourning. So we'll assume that we have a unanimous vote to adjourn. So thank you all for your time and attention tonight.
Yeah.